Hello, everyone. Welcome to this in conversation discussion as part of nasscom's GCC conclave. In this conversation, we will be looking to dwell into the pivotal role that India's global capacity centers play in harnessing AI's potential, propelling technological advancements on a global scale. We will be exploring how India's GCCs are driving innovation and shaping the future of engineering through this implementation of cutting edge AI technologies. And with me, we have the right person to answer these questions, Mr. Rakesh Ravuri, who is the Chief Technical Officer and SVP of Engineering at Publicis Sapient. Rakesh, welcome to this conversation.
Hi, thanks, and thanks for having me for this discussion.
So Rakesh, going through the work you have done in the past few years, the work the organization has been doing, right? And from the insight that you have about the ecosystem and the GCC space, how would you assess the current engineering maturity of GCCs in India, and how can AI systems or solutions help address their key challenges going forward?
See, the engineering maturity of GCCs has always been high, right? That is one reason why most of the multinationals wants to set up a GCC in India, right? That has never been in question. It has always been logistical challenges of working with time zones, working with different geographies. That was what was the concern, if at all, if it was there like 10, 15 years back. But now those are no longer a concern, and especially after COVID, remote working has even reduced as a concern point going forward. So GCCs are definitely a viable option, and definitely a mature option for a lot of the big players. Like anyone who is there in the Fortune 20 or Fortune 50, if you see, they all have GCCs, right? Like there's no single company in Fortune 20 who doesn't have a GCC, whether it is in India or whether it is anywhere else, right? So GCCs have been always quietly maturing, but now it is no longer a question. And especially in India, with the amount of talent pool which we have, it is a viable option compared to any other country. And to your second part of your question, in terms of how AI is playing a role in GCCs, see, AI is also as a technology maturing, right? AI has been there from 70s. We have been talking about it forever. I was joking the other day, like my MS thesis was on neural networks, right? It was not even called AI at that time. It was neural networks and not called machine learning. It was neural networks and fuzzy logic, right? It's just different names, but essentially it was the same thing. But there was a perfect storm of the compute capacity and the data which was generated because of internet maturing. These are the two ingredients which fueled the AI, right? Like which fueled the AI to become the promise has come to fruition, and like people are able to sort of do this. So various things came into position, and now AI became a mature technology. And as with any mature technology, um, people started using this to create their own transformation in terms of their businesses. So yeah, so AI is going to affect anyone, and especially and when you talk about GCCs, it is another tool in their arsenal in order to create value.
Do you think AI has a role beyond being another tool in the arsenal for GCCs?
No, see, if you ask any of the GCCs, what is stopping them from growing 2x, 3x, or like 10x, it always comes down to saying that, okay, there's only so much speed at which we can create value. There's only so many people whom we can train and employ and do this. So AI will play a role in scaling the existing people to add more value. So definitely, what will happen is GCCs will start using AI to produce, like, just in terms of more quantity of software, more quality of software, and also the value which they sort of provide to the parent organizations will be exponential, right? Like so it is just not a tool. It will help in actually helps in removing the constraints which they earlier had. If you ask the number one concern of most of the GCCs, they'll say, okay, we don't finding enough qualified people and scaling them, right, training them and making them productive is the biggest challenge. So if AI will help in reducing those barriers, it'll help them scale effectively.
Understood. So coming to the next question, Rakesh, I think I'm building up on the answer you provided. Like, can you provide, let's say, potential industry use cases which are specific to AI applications that, in a way, can enhance the performance and productivity of GCCs in India?
See, one of the biggest, if you say, constraints or like the thing which slows down people, when you are remote, access to business and the information from the market is little delayed, right? In the sense like we can't walk up to someone and say, tell me about how the merchandising happens in the store, or tell me about how you are dealing with the finance regulations in a particular market. So inherently, there is always a lack of knowledge in GCCs because they are not exposed to these domains, right? Like if, for example, if it's an e-commerce, everyone has experienced e-commerce. E-commerce are global systems, so it's easy for people to understand the requirements and contribute to it. But if you take something which is specific to a market or a company, like how the shops are laid out in, say, US, or how the finance works in France, that is something, unless you're in a market, you or like you are highly experienced, you will not be able to understand this. Now, what AI does is with the kind of this chat interfaces, they act as this now new terminology which is being thrown around, like copilot, sidekick, or whatever you can call it, assistant, AI buddy, whatever term you can give it to that. So people can query it, right? Like query it in their own free time without any barriers, and it can answer to them in their own language, in their own like you can tell it, like explain quantum mechanics to me as a 5-year-old, it'll explain to you, right? Like the same way you can tell it, explain the GDPR laws as applicable to France and Italy, right? And what are the places which cause regulation problems when you're doing a credit card transaction in Germany, right? Like, so those questions people can ask the AI systems right now, like the systems which are built on the GPT models, and people can become more productive, right? Like, so that lack of access to experts or domain experts who generally are there in individual markets, that barrier will reduce. So that is one of the ways in which GCCs can benefit a lot, because they have the technical skills, right? Like, but to get the domain skills, you need the actual experienced people, and that is something which AI can definitely bridge a huge gap on it. And what companies are doing, and what we are helping a lot of companies do, is to take that knowledge and train the models with that knowledge, internal knowledge, right? Like, see, right now the chat GPT and all can answer what is publicly available. But if a company has like whole reams of data and reams of customer service logs, which they have generated internally, now we can train the models on that, and that can be used as an input to the people who are working inside the organization, to everyone. Like, there always be in a company is like, okay, this person knows all the answers because he has been there 15 years in the company, or like he has handled so many departments. Now that knowledge is more democratized. So when you democratize the more knowledge, and when we have the human resources and manpower, what we have in India, it is very good for us, right? Like, so one of the things which is lacking for us is the domain and business experience, and that can be bridged.
Right, right. I mean, I think it brings a lot of opportunity. Like you pointed out, many people have things that otherwise, when speaking about language models and foundational technologies, but yeah. But on the other hand, right, if you look from a opportunity standpoint of view, there are any shortage of that as well. But one big challenge, or one big question that everybody has in their mind when it comes to deployment of AI tools is the ethical aspects, the ethical consideration of them, right? So my one question to you is that, come from a GCC's perspective, what all things should a GCC keep in mind when developing and deploying AI solutions? Also considering the, like, let's say, developments across the world on governance and regulations, which can be, like you pointed out, can be different, right, across the world. And how can organization ensure a responsible and unbiased use of AI technology in an overall manner as well?
Yeah, so I generally give this example of fire to people, right? When man first discovered fire, yeah, it was a beautiful thing, but it also is a dangerous thing. He needs to know how to handle it, right? But that doesn't mean that you stop using the fire, right? You just progressively you you figure out ways to handle it, ways to control it, and ways to harness it, right? The same way, I think AI right now you're right now in a place of, okay, you've seen the potential. And every company has to do their own part in doing what I call it as 4 gates for AI, right? One is basically the governance part of it, like how AI is being used. Second part is how are we sort of complying with the regulation of the land? And in GCC's case, this regulation is a dual thing, right? Like a regulation of the company, the parent company, and the regulation of the land of India too, right? Like, so they need to consider both of them in mind when they are using these technologies. And third thing is ethics. Ethics is a very specific and cultural thing with respect to the company's core values and the culture of the company, right? So you need to have ethics which are aligned to your company's ideas, right? That is something which, because everyone has a different definition of ethic, right? And every country has a different definition of ethics. So you need to make sure that, like, when you're using an AI system, the output, what it produces, doesn't clash with the ethics or the core values of your company. And the fourth thing is bias, right? Like, bias basically comes from the data which you're using it, right? Like, so if you're training it with a data which contains a lot of, like, for example, like a lot of abuses in a customer service agent, the output it produces is also will contain a lot of abuses. So you need to prepare the data. You need to filter the data properly, both before training and even while usage. So generally what happens is people see the use, but like as with fire, I'm saying it, oh, once you have fire, but you also put a guardrail, right? Like, you basically, if you're holding a fire, they say, okay, you hold a handle which doesn't conduct heat, right? Like, that is a basic guardrail which you sort of do so that it doesn't hurt the person who is using it. The same way when you're using AI, first thing you need to do is make sure that the output it is producing, it is going through some other set of filters, right? You don't blindly trust it, but you put, like, there is filtering models, right? Like a filtering model to see, is it racist, is it biased against the parameters which the company wants to check for, right? Is it what you can say, are we using it ethically, right? Are we not using this to trick customers versus are we using it to help customers, right? That's something which people need to debate, discuss before they create a feature with AI. So yeah, so these are all the aspects which are right now very fast moving, in the sense, right? Every company is now coming up with an AI policy. If they are not doing it, they should first invest in first creating an AI policy which gives guidelines, general guidelines. Once those guidelines are there, you implement systems to check for those guidelines, right? Like, so basically saying that when output is there, if your AI policy says that, like, there should be no racist term used in an AI generated content, you should have a system which checks for that. Earlier, we used to have testing systems. Now you will have evaluation systems to evaluate the output, right? Like, before the output is presented. So systems need to develop this. Companies need to invest in also educating the people on the fair use, right? Like the fair use of, you can't train the data with someone else's data without asking their permission, for example, right? You can't use generated data without telling the customer, saying that this is generated data. So those are all, like, basic hygiene things right now which is getting developed. See, earlier we had this problem even when in the internet, right? If someone can take an image from somewhere and they can put it in their website, but they used to always the people who are ethical are they always give credit, right? They always say that, okay, I have taken this image from this URL, or if the image says it's a Creative Commons license, I'm using it. The same way when you're using AI, you need to have proper disclaimers and proper means for people to take corrective actions. If someone has a dispute system, you need to have a system for people to register complaints, right? You should have people to have an ability to take down generated content when asked for. So these are all the things which even in internet they are there. With AI, it just becomes more critical because you can generate content faster. That's all it is, right? I keep telling the people, saying that it's nothing new. This was there even when you are creating your websites in internet, or like posting some content in any of the social platforms. The same problems existed, same bias, ethical regulation, and what you can say, governance problems existed. But the problem was more manageable because the amount of content you could generate is limited, right? But now it has become, AI basically I can generate 1,000 posts in like 2 seconds, right? Like, so that then it becomes difficult, right? So
I think you touched upon many of the important points during this conversation, which from looking from a present perspective. Now let's I have this final question, which is from a future standpoint, okay, right? So, how do you see these engineering tools evolving in the coming years, in your personal opinion? And what are the tools the current generation or the next generation of engineers need to look to ensure that they are future ready, right? Or how do you ensure that their relevance is prevailed? Does skilling alone or upskilling alone plays a role here? So that's my question to you.
Yeah, so there are two aspects to it, right? Like, so if I take my own career, like spanning 25, 30 years, see, when I started, the way the tools were and what the tools are right now, like, for example, I used to write a code in a editor which didn't even have colors, right? So now everything is highlighted. Like, if you look at a coding editor right now, and compare it with what I was doing it when I started my career, this one looks like a completely rainbow colored with like every kind of input given to the developer in different colors and all those things, right? What is a keyword? What is an error? What is a comment? What is etc. Right? And when we wrote a code, then we had a separate step. First, you write a code, save the file, and then you used to compile, right? The compilation, when we set a program for compilation, we used to go and have a coffee, or like we used to go to the water cooler, have a glass of water and come back, because it used to take minimum of 10, 15, 20 minutes to sort of compile. That used to be the thing. But right now, if you see, it sort of compiles inside, like all the editors, basically, as you are typing, it tells you what errors it is creating in your program, whether the syntax is right or something like that. Now, that is an evolution which we saw. Similarly, I feel this AI will take this editors to the next level, right? Like, you don't even write, right now we write a program and then run the test scripts. Now what will happen is the test scripts will be automatically generated, and it will be testing your code while you're writing, not just compiling it, but also testing your code while it is working and giving you hints. It is already we have seen tools like Copilot and all, which not just complete the next word, but it completes the next 4 or 5 lines of code, right? Like, or even write the whole what you can say function for you, right? Depending upon how you sort of prompted it. So these things will only make the engineers work faster. So like, you must have seen all the notices saying that, oh, if engineers work faster, that means like you need lesser engineers, or like maybe engineers are not required to code, right? These are all like very fantastical assumptions. I feel that like COBOL was invented so that business users can write code, right? Like, that was the whole definition of COBOL was common business language, right? So that you don't need programmers, what you can say, business people can write. The same way now saying that, okay, AI doesn't mean that you need programmers is a wrong assumption. What is going to happen is programmers will aim to do a lot more difficult things, right? Earlier, we didn't attempt, like, for example, if there is a search box in your e-commerce website, no one expected that search box to work like Google, right? Like, basically they'll say, like, look, that is too hard, right? Like, it is too hard. You'll need to know exact keywords what you're searching for, then it will show you the product. But now what happens is you can write a text box which is connected to AI system, and you can specify the intent. The intent can be, oh, I'm planning to go for a holiday with 4 of my friends. And then it understands that, okay, if 4 of the friends, it understands your age, it understands your location. So it sort of prompts saying that, okay, maybe you need summer clothes, you need you need a camping equipment, and you're not even searching for individual equipment. It is showing you options based on the intent why you are trying to shop. Or like, you're saying that I'm trying to arrange a birthday party for my 7-year-old daughter, and then it will basically give you options, right? Now, that kind of search box, if a customer came and asked me, I'll say, like, look, that is too difficult to do. You will spend too much time doing that search box. It is maybe that's not valued. Let us just concentrate on searching using a keyword search. That was how we used to until last year we used to do. Now this year, if the customer comes with that requirement, or we will go and suggest the customer saying that, okay, no, this is what you should be doing. So what will happen is, yes, the code will become faster to write, but you will write a lot more code. It is like same thing, like when plastic becomes cheaper, people don't use less plastic, right? They use more plastic. So the same way, when code becomes easier to write, earlier when you wanted to write an application or a project, it was a big undertaking, right? Because it is costly and you need to think twice about, oh, how will I maintain it? How will I update it? Now what happens is, businesses will think very less about starting a new project and writing a new application or writing a new feature, because they can throw away and rewrite it again because the code is easier to write. So in the short term, at least short to medium term, we'll end up writing a lot more code. We'll end up writing a lot more code, and the ambition of the products will go up because the customers will expect more ambitious, right? Everyone now has experienced ChatGPT. They'll expect every text box whenever they see in any application saying that I want that application to behave like that. And you've seen that every application, right from Photoshop to Word to Teams, everyone is releasing new version with AI features. So, when everyone is releasing new versions with new features, you'll require more programmers to sort of do that, right? So in short term, I think there will be huge demand for a lot more of engineers because the ambition has just gone up, right? Like what is possible has just gone up, and it is easier to write. So you don't need experienced people. You can sort of do with semi-skilled, if I can call that, right? But I want to put a caveat here, right? When I say semi-skilled, what I'm talking about is, see, our industry and software industry is very skill driven, saying that, okay, are you a Java programmer? Are you a .NET programmer? Are you a Go programmer, etc. Right? Now what's happening is people can easily jump, what we call it as, they can become easy polyglots, right? Like they can talk any language, they can talk anything, but as long as they're good software engineer in one language and they know the enough of design and architecture, they can easily use AI to help them to bridge the gap between the other languages. The same way as like once Google Translate is there or something, you can easily understand other, like if someone sent you an article in some other language, you just go and cut and paste that article in Translate and it will give you a translated version in whichever language you want. So no longer it was a barrier saying that, oh, how can I read research papers in Germany or like in Russian? But that's how earlier people used to say, right? Oh, you need to learn Russia because a lot of fundamental research is happening in Russia. When I was in college, people used to say that, right? But that is no longer a barrier, right? I can take Chinese papers right now, put it in Google, and I'll get English version. The same way, programmers right now, no one will ask you which language do you know. They'll only ask you, are you a good software engineer, right? Because then you will be able to use the tools to sort of bridge the gap. So these are the fundamental changes in terms of skill, the ability to use the tools in order to span a wider area will be the new skills to learn.
That's yeah, that's very true. I mean, as we enter in this new age of AI, I would like to keep this conversation going, but in short, I think we have run out of our time, unfortunately. Thank you very much for joining this call.
Thanks, Jibu. It was nice talking to you.